You that don't know me, I'm Trinity the Executive Director of the Roslyn Landmark Society. Thank you for being here. We had to reschedule the event from 2 weeks ago because it was raining that day, but we're so glad, even though there's some wind, that it's important to stay and that you're here to enjoy Diane Schwindt's presentation. Diane, you might know, spoke for us last year at the Bryant Library, and this year she's going to do an actual demonstration of sorts of historic cooking around the time that George Washington visited this area. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Diane Schwindt. I'm a historic cook. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background, how I got to this point. Can everybody hear me? Yes. My assistant today is Miss Danielle, who, when you start doing this, there's so many people that go, I would love to do this with you. And you're like, yeah, okay. But Danielle stuck in there. So Danielle's been cooking with me for, I think it's going on the 2nd year now. Yep. So it's actually just a wonderful, wonderful addition to doing these programs. As you can see, it is a lot of equipment that goes on, and this is only a small bit of it. If we were more at a level area, I would have a larger fire. So I've been doing this for now about 10 years, and I am now the resident cook at the Catch 'em Inn. This particular program has to do with George Washington. So in 1790, George Washington came to this area. Now, a lot of times there's always that joke, George Washington slept here. Well, George Washington ate here. But what did he eat? So as a food historian or a historic cook, you have to do a lot of research. So I'm going to tell you how I got to the point. So when asking, I couldn't find a primary source. In history, it is important that when you repeat or demonstrate, that you try to really focus in on that primary source. We have to fill in a lot of the blanks. So there's a lot of givens during this time period. The average woman did not write. In the 1700s, there were so those type of things were just not written down. We find things in diaries, in newspaper articles, and so on. So I started out with, I ordered George Washington's diary. I figured that was a primary source. So on April 24th, it was a Saturday, George Washington came to Roslyn. So it's here, just turn the page, and that will give you, and it doesn't indicate where he stayed, but it said that he ate breakfast with the Orthodox family, which is a Dutch family. So knowing that it's a Dutch family and it's fairly early on, I chose to make something called hebelskibbels. And hebelskibbels are a small Dutch donut that are done in these little tiny pans. The dough is put into this. Half of it has to be with butter, and then you put the dough in. So these little Dutch pans, the hebelskibbel pans, produces a small little donut, and you flip them with a knitting needle or a skewer once they get, one side is cooked. They kind of float in this butter, so they're really good when they're hot. We're going to heat some up. Due to the weather, I did a lot of this yesterday at a fire at my house with a cover, so I was able to make sure that you had some treats to eat. So this is a hebelskibbel pan. This would be put on the fire, or it would be put on something called a trivet, and the fire would be put underneath of it, and that's how you would cook your hebelskibbels. The next thing I did, I looked to see what George Washington's favorite breakfast was. Anybody know? Hoe cakes. Hoe cakes are very closely related to Johnny cakes, but they were not called Johnny cakes. They were called actually journey cakes. And that's how it kind of went through time. It kind of changed to Johnny cakes. And that's done with cornmeal. George Washington, he visited 2 major places on the Orthodox family owned. One was a grist mill, so they would have been grinding corn and wheat and those grains. So I bought a stone mill. So if anybody wants to try, if you want, you can pick it up. there's cross grooves in the stone going one way and the other. So as the wheel turns or the stone turns, it's actually grinding. To make 1 loaf of bread is about 7 cups of flour. Once you try that, you're going to see how labor intensive grinding grain is. It's redone over and over again. And that became, if you lived in a small community without a mill, is that you had a small mill, a hand mill, and it was called the daily grind because you had to grind. And this was done by a child most likely, or a younger person, that they would that. The grinding of wheat or corn, and the other task that was done by children a lot was churning butter. It was a tedious, hours intense. I brought this to show you. Most of you have these wooden bowls sitting in your kitchen. They're not salad bowls. They're really butter bowls. Once the butter is churned, you have to wash it several times, and these large spoons, you would run it under cold water and you would pull the fat or the butter, and it would be washed. So these big bowls were really butter bowls. You know, but now we put our fruit in them. But these spoons, these are butter spoons. And it has to be done 2 or 3 times until your water runs clear. So think about this, it's 1700s, there's no running water. So either it's a pitcher of water and you just keep, and it's very labor intensive because you're pulling the butter to make sure you get all of that milk out. And you'll see it, and then eventually it becomes clear. At that point, if you wanted to, you could add your salts or whatever you wanted to add it to. So what do you do with the rest of that, all that milk that's being produced every day? You make cheese. Cheese was really important. Your soft cheeses were your summer and spring cheeses, spring, summer cheeses. And then the other ones that are cured for months on end, those are your hard cheeses, those ones that are like Parmesan. But those Parmesan, those hard cheeses, they become your proteins in the winter months when your meat runs out. And that's where you get those big graters and you grate that cheese, and that goes into your sauces and your stews and your whatever you're cooking. So that's your dairy line. So, all right, so we know that George, he had the Hebel skibbles of the Dutch community. We know that he loved waffles. So I made waffles. Martha Washington, there's only a couple of these in the United States, and I happen to own one. But it was a gift, a wedding gift, they think, for her first marriage, and it is a waffle iron. So a waffle iron, again, a lot of butter, a lot of fat. The dough would be put in here, or the batter, and this would be put on the fire, and then it would be flipped, and you would have a waffle. So I made a batch of waffles too. George would have something called a waffle folly or frolic, and they were basically waffle parties. So he comes to Long Island. He brings his cook. So he brings his cook. So I said, let me find a primary source. Probably the cook wrote something down, but there was a problem. He was a slave, and he did not know how to read or write. So we have no records of exactly what he had or brought with him, but he did bring his cook and the cook's wife with him. That somewhere along the way, there's oral history that he ate roasted clams, which is not probably correct. I can't find anything. I thought maybe a diary in the Onkadonk family said George ate clams or whatever. They would have eaten clams, but I can't find any. How would they have cooked the clams? They would have hung the clams on little hooks, and this would have been put up against the fire. I just put the shells there for clams. It could have been oysters, it could have been clams. We're in a kind of like, by the sea, so they would have eaten any of these things. I'm not sure they would have served this to George for breakfast. So then I have this waffle iron. So there's a difference in this time period, we're talking early 1700s, between waffles and wafers. Can anybody see that? For waffle are wafers, but there's religious emblems on there. Can everybody see that? Communion wafers. basically evolved from waffles. There were 3 nuns that started making communion wafers. So the idea of breaking bread, does anybody know where that comes from? Breaking bread, kind of we're in the right purpose. To break bread, communal, you know where it started. It goes back to Judaism. So when you have Shabbat, all right, or the Sabbath, you're not supposed to use metal to cut the bread because metal is a tool for a weapon. So you break the bread. And then the Last Supper, that's where that breaking of the bread, because it was a Jewish community, breaking of the bread. So we now move forward, and now even in Christianity, we have breaking of the bread. Communion wafers used to be very big, and you used to break a piece off, so it all came from one. But it all started out with waffles and wafers. All right, so we talked about the waffles. We talked about the Hebel skibbles. Now the hoe cakes. But George had hoe cakes. He would have 3 to 4 of these hoe cakes in the morning. He would drench them in butter and honey. So I started doing research on honey. Honey is not native to the Americas. Did you know that? I said, if he's having breakfast, what is he drinking? So his liquid of choice was Madeira wine, which is very good. It had a different property than other wines. It came from Portugal, and as it sat on the boat and heated up and cooled on that boat, it changed it. It's kind of a very thick wine, but it's very yummy. But if you have the opportunity, try to take some. Also, he would have tea. What kind of tea? He had bohea tea and hasten tea. So I chose the bohea tea. The bohea tea I have is heated up, and you can try some of that. The bohea tea has a very smoky taste. When I first started doing this, I thought that it was just because that was the leaf flavor, but it wasn't. As these teas were being imported from China and Japan, all those countries, from the Dutch trading company, East Trading Company, what was happening is the tea leaves were spoiling and rotting. So they smoked them, they cured them, and that's that smoky taste that you're going to taste in the tea. It's where the leaves were actually smoked, so they would be able to be shipped to the New World. As tea became very expensive, then there was other things that George would drink and so on. But pretty much it was bohea tea and Madeira wine that were his favorite drinks of choice. So we have tea for you, we have waffles, and we have Hebel skibbles. So let me tell you a little bit about the hearth. This is my traveling hearth. It's an open air hearth that I can bring to historic sites without damaging their buildings and setting them on fire. On the back side of it, you see a crane. A crane is that triangular item that goes back and forth, and that allows me to move my pots in and out. That was a modern invention. On the back side over here, where is it? You can't see it from where you are. Okay, this is called the treadle, and a treadle allows you to move your pots. Danielle, could you hold this, please? Thank you. So I can move my pots up and down. Don't go up higher. Just. And it allows me to move up and down like a jack. So that's called a treadle. Thank you. Before the crane, this was a permanent crane. So you'll see that in all your history books, with the pots hanging off of it. And that would be on the hearth. The hearth is actually the floor of your fireplace. It is not the whole entire thing. It's just the floor. So if you have a bread stove that is, those bread stoves, you put the bread on the hearth, the floor of it, and then you would push it in. they would have bakers, and they would put the bread in, and then the Lord of the Manor would want his bread. He would take the bread and he would cut off the bottom crust, and then he would give the Lord of the Manor the upper crust. So that was for the more prestige, the better. And then that bottom crust was put into stews. It was never wasted. But it would be very hard because it would be on the floor or the hearth. You have your door, you have your jams, you have your mantle, and then there's actually a pole that goes across, which is called the lug pole. Earlier times, that lug pole was a green piece of wood that was shoved in there, but eventually it would fail. That's when women would get burnt. Not because of the clothing they have on. At the age of a small child, maybe the age of 2 or 3, they're walking, they already knew the fire was danger. So by the time they were cooking at the fire, it was automatic where your feet and your clothing were. We also have our aprons pinned to the side. So if Danielle was to lean in, my apron would go into the fire. So by keeping them tucked to the side, it keeps it close to your body and gives you a little bit of added protection. Our hair is pinned up. We both, you would have had lice and fleas, so your hair was always pinned up and there would have been a bonnet on it.
Pockets too.
She has pockets. They're tied around her waist, individual. Underneath of everything, we have a, this is called a chemise. The chemise is made of linen, and that would have been your undergarments. Other than that, there would have been nothing. And then we have long stockings on that go up to about here, to our thighs. Danielle has clocked. Hers are fancier, mine are not. I don't know if you can see. The gentleman wants to see your socks. Clocked socks. Very rarely we have jewelry on. I can't even wear rings. It conducts heat. If you're by the fire, jewelry has to conduct heat. Even my glasses, the next set of glasses, I actually have to go to Europe. They don't make glass anymore in the United States. My other ones, the plastic ones, that are pitted now from the heat of the fire. So it is your whole thought process is totally different. The items on top are pretty generic. I think pretty much everybody can identify most of this. Anybody know what this is? This is called the flip. And a flip ale was pretty much a drink that everybody drank. It was only 4% alcohol. So, but it was still, everybody was probably a little boozy. But the beer would be put in here. And then this would be put into the fire and heated up. Warm beer. Anyway, all right, so we good? How about we start with the tea? How many people would like some tea? Some bohea tea. I'm gonna make some tea, and then I'm gonna start heating up some waffles, some Hebel skibbles, and some of the hoe cakes. All right? Good. All right. So,
is she coming out of there and here, or just being poured directly out of that?
I'm gonna pour it right here and take it out. Yes. Super hot. Okay, good. Who want it? I'm gonna start at this side. It's very hot. I'm gonna double. It's called bohea tea. It has been smoked. If you don't like it, obviously just dump it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna come right around. That's what I'm gonna do. I am gonna heat up some Hebel skibbles. I need this and some wooden skewers. Okay. All right, here, figure it out.
Miss anybody?
You know what? I mean, it's
Everything's over there on the table.
oh,
Yeah.
great.
The difference. Yeah. Okay. All right. The whole cakes are going to be served with butter
Okay.
and honey. Here, I'll serve you. What do you need it for?
I don't know, whatever you
All right, the ingredients are flour, cornmeal, 2 eggs, baking powder, sugar, milk, salt, water, and melted butter. So I'm going to serve it with melted butter. So bring up your plate, and then I'm also going to put honey. All right, if you do not want either of these, you have to tell me as I'm doing it, because I'm going to move fast. So if you want to make a line, and we'll get it going. The cakes would have been cooked in something called a spider pan, where the fire would have been built underneath of it, and they would have been cooked in lard. Okay, you ready?
ready.
Get another glove on. I need butter. Yeah, all right, so I need this, Danielle, can you stand on the other side of me, please? This side here. You have gloves on? Okay,
Yes.
Put it on. Put one on each plate, and then bring your plate to me, please.
There, we started that in.
Okay.
Yeah, they're hot.
They are?
Yep, you gotta keep moving down that way so
Yeah, move out of the way.
you go.
And we're going to put some jam on it, and the jam is a wild blueberry preserve. But if you actually prefer the honey, we could do that too. If you take a 55-gallon drum, that's about how much you would need to take 1 gallon of syrup. Imagine the work of collecting it, storing it, and then rendering it down. Anybody else?
Didn't they take it from the trees, the maple trees?
They did. So how that works is, and by January, February, as the temperature drops and it gets hot during the day, like in February, that's when your sap is running up and down. They make a hole about that big and they put a tap in it. And then it comes out and it's gathered in a bucket. And then once you get enough, then you can render it down. Do you want honey on it or anything?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay. This one has a round circle. This is probably early 17, late 1600s. So when it has a belly button, it's an older pot. And don't paint your pots black and then put geraniums in them. All right? It ruins the pot, and I can only use it for heating up water. But this is probably, like I said, this may have come over from Europe. There were imports, but this is probably late 1600s. So this is, yeah. So your meal would have been in here. Whatever your meal was, say you went and you got, if you got a rabbit, you would put the rabbit in here. And then you would just keep adding your layers of food constantly. If it was a cereal, you would use something like this. Anybody know what this is? It's a spurtle. Can you say the word spurtle? Spurtle, isn't that a fun word to say? A spurtle. But a spurtle is used for grains like farinas and grains, because porridges, because if you were to use a spoon, it collects and gunks up. But a spurtle or a dowel-like item doesn't. And it allows you just to do that, where a spoon you can't with those cereals. Turning those pancakes, I would have used a tool like this, which is basically what we use modern. But it's a little bit heavier, and that's the, okay, you ready? All right, so I have to work a little bit slower. Oh, you look like you're at communion. You're so cute. All right, give me your plate, and I'm gonna put some jam on there. Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, all right.
What would you like, jam, butter?
Jam and butter.
Okay. Gotta sing out.
I'm going right for all of it.
Great.
It's good enough for George, it's good enough for me.
There you go.
Thank you.
So if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I think, are we good? All right, does that satisfy everybody?